Jason Nicholson. I just have some thoughts about possibly a hypothesis for the cause and treatment of MS, multiple sclerosis, which I would like to share. And they may also be useful for, autoimmune disease, but we'll see. Now, my hypothesis is this. It starts with low stomach acid, believe it or not. Now, the problem with low stomach acid is that your digestion needs stomach acid to work properly. The stomach acid gets mixed with the foods, I understand, and that acid goes down the digestive tract and makes things come out like bile and whatnot. So you get digestion. Now, when you have low stomach acid, you don't get that. But another consequence is stomach acid usually usually kills out things like yeast. And we take in a lot of yeast in our society, in bread and stuff. Now, the problem with yeast is that if your stomach acid doesn't kill it out, it can go into your gut, and once in a while it'll stick. So it takes up residence in your gut. We already have yeast in our gut, but this means we have more yeast, sort of an overgrowth of yeast. Now, the problem with yeast is that when it takes up residence, it just doesn't sit there. It drills holes in your gut, and they call that leaky gut syndrome. The problem with that is that once you have holes in your gut, undigested food particles can go right through your gut lining, right directly into your bloodstream. Well, that's not good because your immune system thinks of them as invaders and tries to attack them. Now, in my limited understanding of immunology, the way the immune system works is it somehow takes a kind of a chemical signature of whatever it's attacking, whatever is a foreign body, and that is what it uses to identify what to attack and what not to. The problem with undigested food is that the chemical signature of some foods is very, very similar to the chemical signature of some parts of our body. It's a thing called molecular mimicry. So, of course, you can see where this is going. That if the immune system, being a good worker, attacks the invader, it'll also attack the immune, like the part of your body that's identified. So for MS, it might be myelin. So it'll attack myelin, and you get MS. But there's no reason why if a different kind of food particle got through, it would have a different signature. And that would mean the immune system would attack a different thing, which possibly has the same chemical signature as another part of your body. So it could be a general explanation for autoimmune disease. Now, part of the reason why it made sense to me are a few things. So when you want to treat low stomach acid, first of all, I tried lots of things, but I ended up asking a Chinese medical doctor. What they said was very simple. Things like cardamom and cinnamon and nutmeg will do it. So I now have a cup of chai tea every morning before breakfast, and that seems to give me stomach acid for the whole day. Now, the causes of low stomach acid, there are a few, of course, but the two that jumped out at me most were stress and poor diet. Now, those in my experience are two of the major contributors to MS. So that is one connection. I was like, oh, not good. So you fix your diet, and that's one way of treating MS. And fixes stress is another way. Another thought that I had was that mercury from dental fillings also, I think, makes stomach acid less. So, like getting rid of metal fillings from your mouth would also be a good thing. Something which is well known in MS. Now, it also explains a few things that I was always wondering about MS. So recently, like a few years ago, someone told me that in fact, cinnamon is good for MS. Now at the time, it just seemed like a crazy fact, like I didn't know why. But now with this understanding of maybe the stomach acid, cinnamon could be good for MS because it stimulates stomach acid, pure and simple. The other thing is there's a classic divide in MS. MS seems to be far more prevalent in northern climes than in southern climes, and no one knows why. But this could offer an explanation. Okay, first of all, the northern climes usually eat more leavened bread, so we have more exposure to yeast. The southern climes, in my limited understanding, seem to eat more flatbreads, tortillas, even rice. I mean, things with less yeast in it anyway. Now, the second thing is, generally in more southern climes, the food becomes spicier. There's historical and cultural reasons for this. But spice is one of the things which stimulates stomach acid. So of course you're going to have less MS if this theory is correct in the southern climes, because they have less yeast and more stomach acid to kill out any yeast they do get. So that fit very well for me. Now, I didn't realize the connection when I was first diagnosed with MS. After about 10 or 15 years though, I had the insight that, in fact, I had had a serious yeast infection in my gut about a year before the first MS symptoms appeared. Now, I consulted a naturopath and killed it out, I thought. But the idea was maybe I didn't get it all. So I went online and I found this wonderful website called yeastinfectionadvisor.com. Now what it does is it actually gives a protocol for how to get rid of a yeast infection. It's an herbal protocol, and I followed it. Now, the reason why I went with herbal is because I tried doing a Western medicine route. I tried using a drug, And I took even a month-long course with no effect. But this website explained why. The reason why is the yeast is pretty smart. When it holds up somewhere in your body, it makes this thing called a biofilm around itself, kind of like a protective layer. So the drug, even though it would kill it, can't even get at it. So the drugs aren't as effective. Now this yeastinfectionadvisor.com protocol, what it does is two things. First, you take enzymes. The enzymes are specifically to remove the biofilm. And once you do that, then you take herbs which are more strong anti-yeast things, and they just kill the yeast naturally. Now, the next thing is that with the leaky gut, not only can food particles go through, but the realization came to me a few years ago that yeast itself can go through into your bloodstream. And therefore you get a systemic yeast infection. Not a good thing. Now for me personally, after I went on this yeast infection advisor protocol, I felt great. I had killed out the yeast in my body, and I went on a very low carb diet because I didn't want to feed any yeast that was still there. And what I did was I said, well, if I don't have the carbs for energy, I still need some energy. Why don't I eat more fats? So I went on what would now be described as a ketogenic diet. But I was pre that, so it was just a high-fat diet. Now the problem with high-fat diets, what would benefit as well, is that when you eat fat, fat makes you not hungry. That is why a ketogenic diet is really good for losing weight, because you literally are not hungry and the weight just slides off you. The problem for me was I was not overweight. So when I went on this diet for a few years, I inadvertently lost too much weight. Now I discovered this once when I was in the hospital, that I was at 120 pounds, where my norm is more like 160, 165. Not good. So I switched my diet right away and ate some carbs again just to gain the weight back. And I tried this very carefully, but my gut didn't seem to react badly. It seemed to go well, and I thought, well, I'm safe. I've killed out the yeast. It's all good. Now, I kept going on that for a few years. I moved into a place where carbohydrates were standard on the menu, kind of a standard North American diet. And so I was eating more carbohydrate. Also, I got involved in some other things that consume me, like consume my attention. And so I didn't really pay that much attention to my diet. Now my flaw, in retrospect, was I had not yet solved the stomach acid problem. That although I was yeast-free, I not yet had enough stomach acid to properly digest my food and to kill the yeast, or any yeast that would come. Now, I worked in the last 3 years to discover the chai, so my stomach acid is good now. But what happened, I think, was that because I was eating carbs, the carbohydrate content of my blood went up. So the yeast, if there was yeast that went through into my body, which I think there was, that gave it food to eat. So it grew. Now my MS symptoms progressed in the last 3 years. And I didn't really know why. I just thought it was part of the disease. But now I think that they progressed because I was eating the carbs were feeding the yeast was growing and cutting down. That was what was making the symptoms get worse. So I had this realization, oh dear, I better stop the carbs again. Now, when I did that, this was only 3 weeks ago or so. When I did that I had the realization one night. I quit carbs the next day. Within a day, heat in my hands, one of the symptoms I was dealing with, was noticeably decreased. So I realized that in fact, probably I was onto something, that the carbs were the problem. So I have been on a very low carb diet. And I went back to this yeast infection advisor, and I'm going to do the herbal protocol again to cut down this systemic yeast, which I think is in my body now. The thing is, what I wanted to do with this video was record my progress on a regular, like a weekly basis, just to see what the herbal stuff does for me. So that's why this video log is a log. Now, I should say, just for the record, that I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not a medical professional of any type. I don't recommend this to anyone. This is purely for their consumption if they want. The only prescription I give for this is for myself. That being said, I think it's an interesting idea, and one that I wanted to disseminate so that people could sort of think about it and maybe test in their own lives. So I'd be, instead of being responsible for saying you shouldn't do this, I will not do that. But I'd be very interested if there's any sort of results that people want to share back with me. Anyway, that's all I would like to say, and I will be back next week with my first update. I should start the herbs in a couple of days. Thank you very much, and have a very good